just wanted to mention that as I have learned more about Islamic history, the history of the Muslims in the world, I mean, for one thing, I mean, I'm sure it's second nature to you, but how amazing is it that over 2 billion, over a quarter of the world's population are Muslims, you know? I mean, this is an important piece of information to have, and to understand this body of knowledge is incredibly important. And then the other thing, I don't know how, because of the way our education, we do have in the West this dedication to education, but it tends to be a little bit still slanted, you know, because until I was an adult, I didn't really know much about, and even today, I would say I don't know as much as I could or should know about the incredible contributions that Muslim scholars have made to the advance of knowledge, particularly in that period between the 8th century and the 15th century. You know, the mathematics and geometry, and you know, there's just a whole slew of things we take for granted today that are the results of the studies and insights of Islamic scholars. So Sitara, you know, what this brings up for me is there's a kind of paradox, you know, because what I've learned from Iram and from my own studies is that Islam really contains some of those beautiful and profound teachings that exist in the world. And as we've just been talking about, Muslims have made huge contributions to human history. But there are also these contradictions in terms of the practice of Islam, it seems.
You mentioned, Chris, the stilted nature of the knowledge tradition in the West. I think something similar is happening here, because we know that the Western knowledge tradition for a long period now has been positivist. So we'll believe science, but we will not believe in spiritual aspects of human beings. We know that psychology does not grapple with the idea of soul. The idea of soul is completely missing from Western psychology, whereas in Eastern traditions, the idea of soul or spirit is actually part of their philosophical outlook. But also the decoloniality movements, which are now happening in universities across the US, here in Britain as well. So people understand that the knowledge tradition is stilted. We know that Orientalist tropes can come in. Islam can be seen as that alien, exotic, barbaric religion, medieval. There are some really negative tropes about Islam, but I think that awareness of the fact that knowledge here in the West is very Eurocentric and European values are often seen as universal values, I think that is being critiqued. So even in the Western tradition, there is this maturity that you can step back and criticize your own knowledge tradition. I know it's still controversial. There are barriers to it. So an example for my sons always say this to me, but why have you not taught colonialism in school? And you're not. You know, in Britain, you're not taught colonialism in school. Something as formative for Britain as colonialism in the last 200 years surely should be taught at school, but it's not part of the history curriculum. So I would hope that as the Western stilted knowledge tradition becomes more comfortable with acknowledging its stiltedness and doing away with some of the supremacist assumptions as well around universal values, European values are the best values. I think once it starts stepping back a little bit, it will open up that space to reckon, for the West to reckon with its own history. So I think these things are happening in the West, but I think Muslims just have to do a lot more work about our knowledge tradition, because I think we felt very insecure and very unanchored for a long period of time, we also become very defensive and very touchy about things, which then means that it becomes difficult to turn the internal critical eye inwards, if that makes sense.